Do you struggle to find time to write and juggle a full time job? That is something that's very common with the busyness of our lives. But if you have a dream to write a book, don't let that dream dwindle or die because you don't chase your dream. You don't pursue your dream in the midst of the busyness of life. Let's face it, after working a long day, it can be hard to be motivated, to have the energy, to have the stamina, to find time to write. And so I am going to give you 6 tips on how to stay the course and juggle the finding time to write and a full time job. Tip number one is atmosphere. Create an atmosphere that feeds your creativity. Find a space that feeds your creativity so that when you sit down in that space, that you have it flows, your creativity flows, the words flow. That's what you want to create. Now, that looks different from person to person. So, do you need to invest in a comfortable chair? What about an ergonomic keyboard so that your wrist is straight? There's things like clutter versus no clutter. Do you need stuff on the walls? Some writers use a process where they put lots of things all over the wall, and other writers write it on paper. What feeds your creativity and create that space so that when you find the time to sit down and write, that you are able to write. I don't know about you, but my house is very busy and very full with people coming and going all the time at very odd times of the day sometimes. And so, one of the things that helps me with creating an atmosphere and a space to write is that I have a space in my room where I can shut the door and I am alone so that I can focus on what I'm doing. So, I would love to hear from you in the comments. What can you do to create a space where you can foster your creativity and write your story? Tip number two is time and energy. There are only 24 hours in a day. We all get the same amount of time, the same amount of hours, and we get to choose how we spend it. And on the flip side of that, we can't spend 8 or 10 hours working and think that we're going to have another 8 to 10 hours to write. We need to keep in mind how much time we spend on each of the things in our lives and allocate the right amount of time. Now, if you're working a full time job, you may only have 10 minutes a day where you can write, or perhaps 20, or perhaps 30. Most of us can carve out a small chunk of time within our 24 hours a day to commit to writing because, as I've said in other videos, consistency is important. So look at your time, look at how your day is spent and how much time can you set aside every day to write. Whatever that is, write it down. How much time? And put it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Tip number three is set realistic writing goals. Whatever you want to accomplish, make sure that your goals are doable within your life and how much time you have. And so, even if you only do 10 minutes a day or 20 or 30, even if you have a small amount of time that you can set aside for this, if you are consistent and you continue to meet that goal, over time, you will hold a completed manuscript in your hand. So make sure that your goals are realistic enough that you are going to stick with them. If the goal is too big and the steps to reach where you want to be are too big, you may not stick with it. You may not be consistent. So make sure that the steps you're going to take within your goal that they are doable and they are realistic for your life. Number four is be consistent. I talk about this in other videos, but it's really important and it's really critical to having a full time job and juggling writing a book. The consistency of maintaining your writing schedule, whatever you've set for yourself, meeting your goals. The consistency is the key. And so I want to talk about the tortoise and the hare. This is an old story that we all heard as children. So the tortoise and the hare start out at the beginning of the race line and they set off. And the hare jumps forward. He goes super fast. He doesn't pace himself. He gets distracted. He stops for a snack along the way. He takes a shortcut and he gets in all kinds of trouble because he doesn't pace himself and stay consistent. Now, the tortoise, he is consistent. He goes one small step at a time. He doesn't stop. He doesn't get distracted. He stays with the course. He keeps the goal in mind and he is just focused on reaching that finish line. And so as writers juggling a full-time job and writing, you want to be like the tortoise. You want to take one small step at a time, stay focused, don't get distracted, stay the course, and reach your goals by being consistent. Number 5 is set a routine. Figure out what is your time of day that you're most productive. So some people are morning people and some people are night owls. So my husband and I, we are a writing team and we both write, but we have much different times of day that we're productive. So I'm more of a morning person and he is more of a night owl. And it hits about 9 o'clock at night, and I'm kind of done. I don't want to do anything creative. I don't want to write. That is not my productive time. I know myself, and I know that I am better in the beginning part of the day. I'm more creative. I'm more productive. So if I can carve out time in the beginning part of my day rather than the end of my day, I'm going to be more productive. My husband is the flip of that. He is more productive and creative later in the day. And so figure out what time of the day is your most productive time. Is it morning? Is it night? Is it the middle of the day? What is going to be the most productive time? And then make that part of your plan. Make it part of your scheduling of your writing time. Now, working a full-time job, that may be a hindrance, but if you work all day, then maybe you get up an hour earlier and you have time to write before you go to work. Sometimes that works for people. Whatever works for you, figure that out and make that part of your plan. Number 6 is delegate and be wise with your time. So we often spend a lot of time doing things that are not productive, things that do not add to what our goals are. They don't reach us towards our goals. They may be things that are important like chores, like cleaning the house and cooking meals. Is there any way that you can delegate any of that to free yourself up? I actually had a friend of mine ask me when I was talking to her about I'm working and I'm trying to write and I'm making videos and I've got all this stuff going on and I'm like, "Well, I don't know how to keep up." And she actually asked me, "Well, could you afford to hire someone to come into your house and just do some of those chores for you to get that off my plate?" And that was really wise advice. And sometimes we can do that. So I would just encourage you to look at your life, look at what the tasks are and the things that you have to do, and ask yourself, can I delegate any of this to free myself up to have more time to write? Because when we have a busy life, that's very important. The other thing is to be wise with our time. We're not often wise with our time. And with the modern technology and the phones that we carry around with us and our laptops and just all of the distractions in life, sometimes we are not very wise with our time. And so I would just want to say that when we are looking at how much time we're going to carve out to be able to write and work a full-time job, it really requires us to be wise. Sometimes when you sit down to write, you may want to take your phone and silence it. One of the things that I do is I will put my phone on airplane mode so that I'm not interrupted by my phone. The other thing you can do is any time that you have downtime, you're waiting in a doctor's office or you have an errand and you have to go sit and wait for something, you could be using that time to read a book about writing. Use your time wisely so that you can find that time to write with a full-time job. If you have any tips about juggling a full-time job and writing and making that work, I would love to hear from you. Put that in the comments below.